deeper parts of the body. That is not superficial bleeding. Bleeding in deep parts of the body. That is bleeding inside the muscle, bleeding inside the joint. That is muscle hematoma or hemarthrosis. Okay, hemarthrosis means bleeding inside the joint. Bleeding in deeper parts of the body usually indicate disorder of coagulation system, not platelet disorder. That is coagulation system disorder. That may be due to congenital hemophilia A, B. That are the commonest. Other functional deficiency of other clotting factor that may occur, or maybe acquired coagulation defect. Among these, common is liver disease. We know there are certain coagulation factors, that is 2, 7, 9, 10, that require post-translation and modification activation from liver. So any liver disease may cause coagulation defect by causing dysfunction of these 4 coagulation factors. So bleeding manifestation may occur either superficial bleeding that may indicate platelet disorder, or deep bleeding that may indicate disorder of coagulation system. Next, complaint that may occur, that is complaint of prolonged fever. Prolonged fever. Prolonged fever usually denotes defective in immune system. That is defect in immune system. One part of immune system is our WBC. White blood cell gives us a natural protection against different infection. So any causes that causes depression of this white blood cell, especially neutrophil count, that is neutropenia, may predispose patient to various types of infection, and patient will present with irregular fever, like in pancytopenia, like in leukemia. This will present us with prolonged irregular fever. Due to defect in WBC count and defect in immune system, patient also may present with recurrent mouth ulceration. Recurrent mouth ulceration. So these are the major 3 complaints of cases of hematopoietic system due to damage of major 3 lines of blood cell in body. That is pallor due to defect in red cell or hemoglobin, bleeding manifestation due to defect in platelet, fever, recurrent oral ulceration due to defect in WBC count. Other secondary complaint that you may get during examination of a case of hematopoietic system, like jaundice. Jaundice. When you will get jaundice? That is, one is chronic hemolytic anemia. Due to hemolysis, there will be more production of more breakdown of RBC, and consequently there will be more production of bilirubin that cause unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Very rarely, I have discussed already, if any liver disease causing bleeding manifestation, you may get a history of prolonged jaundice or other dysfunction of liver disease. Other complaint that may occur, that may patient present with, severe pallor causing heart failure, and from heart failure patient may present with features of respiratory distress. If mild to moderate pallor cannot be noticed by mother, patient may present with severe pallor and consequently the features of heart failure, that is features of respiratory distress or breathing difficulty. Other history, you may get swelling in different parts of the body. Swelling in different parts of the body usually denotes neck swelling, axillary swelling, inguinal swelling. In hematopoietic system, patient may present with swelling in different parts of the body due to enlargement of lymph nodes. That may be cervical lymph nodes, that may be axillary lymph nodes, that may be inguinal lymph nodes. Another secondary history you may get, that is abdominal pain, abdominal distension, or swelling in any part of the abdomen. In hematopoietic system cases, in chronic hemolytic anemia or ALL, due to hepatosplenomegaly, you may get abdominal distension. If hepatosplenomegaly is huge, obviously, there may be abdominal distension of outside, or there may be localized swelling at the region of right hypochondrium or left hypochondrium. That denotes the position of liver or spleen. Dull aching abdominal pain may be also a complaint due to chronic organ enlargement causing stretching of the organ capsule. Capsular stretching may cause dull aching boring pain at the right hypochondrium or left hypochondrium. So these are the secondary complaints you may come across during examination of hematopoietic system. Other histories what are important, that is past history. Very important, any recurrent history of any blood transfusion. Very important. History, birth history, among the birth history for hematopoietic system particularly, very important is childbirth. During childbirth, any history of increased bleeding. Child may, in any coagulation defect, that is commonest is congenital deficiency of factor 13. Patient may present with increased risk of umbilical bleeding at neonatal period. So birth history is important along with routine birth history, that is antenatal history, internatal history, postnatal history. Particularly this history to be asked from mother whether there is history of increased bleeding from umbilical stump during neonatal period. Other very important history is the family history in hematopoietic system. We know thalassemia is a genetic disorder. There is every possibility of getting family history, known or unknown. Mother or father may be known carrier, that mother may give you, or in first case of chronic hemolytic anemia, during investigation we can do the routine screening of the parents for thalassemia carrier. So you may get history of mother or any sibling positive with thalassemia screening or positive thalassemia needing recurrent blood transfusion. So family history is very important. Another family history important for hematopoietic system, that is family history of hemophilia. Hemophilia, we know it is the X-linked disease, so usually females are carrier, usually males are male babies or male child or male member of the family are usually affected from maternal side. So if we suspect a case of coagulation disorder, we have to take a history of similar disorder or similar history of FFP transfusion, blood transfusion, FFP transfusion of the male members of the family from maternal side, like maternal uncle. So family history in case of hematopoietic system is very important. Next, come to the history, important history for examination of hematopoietic system to be taken, that is the history, dietary history. Detailed history of dietary history to be taken to get the clue about any nutritional deficiency of underlying anemia. Child of younger age that is infants up to 2 to 3 years of age, are very prone to develop iron deficiency anemia. So if detailed dietary history is taken and we see that child is not taking sufficiently iron-rich food, there may be possibility of diagnosis of iron deficiency anemia. Megaloblastic anemia due to vitamin B12 deficiency may occur in patient with pure vegetarian diet. So detailed history is very important to get a clue about the underlying cause of pallor or anemia. There are certain drugs that causes anemia by different mechanisms, like some affect the vitamin B12 for folate metabolism, or some affect the bone marrow, causing hypoplasia or hypoproliferation of the bone marrow and causing consequently anemia or pancytopenia. So those are the drugs that like phenytoin, anticonvulsant drugs like phenytoin, phenobarbital. These drugs causes vitamin B12 or folate deficiency, consequently megaloblastic anemia. And anti-cancer drugs, and among the antibiotics, the main culprit is chloramphenicol drugs that causes hypoperfusion of the bone marrow. Received any radiation to the part of the bone marrow, that may also cause hypoplastic anemia or hyperproliferation of bone marrow. So drug history is also very important. So all routine history to be taken, but emphasis to be given for those points to get any clue about the causes or any suspicious of cases of hematopoietic system. Now, after history, we'll come to the general survey. Among the general survey points, what are the important points for hematopoietic system examination? Coming to one by one point of general survey, that is, first point we'll know about the higher function. Higher function usually not affected in cases of hematological system until or unless patient is very much sick. Like if patient may develop intracranial hemorrhage due to severe thrombocytopenia in ITP or leukemia, if the risk of intracranial hemorrhage is when the platelet count is below 10,000, that is severe thrombocytopenia. Normal platelet count, we know, actually 1.5 lakh to 4 lakh per cubic millimeter. When it is below 1 lakh, it is called thrombocytopenia, and severe thrombocytopenia, that is when platelet count is less than 10,000, there is increased risk of intracranial hemorrhage. So intracranial hemorrhage is an acute emergency condition, and patient will present us with altered sensorium, convulsion, weakness of the part of the body, and various neurodeficits. So until and unless patient is very sick, usually mild to moderate cases, of cases of hematopoietic system, usually sensorium is not affected. So higher function, if the patient is conscious, you will write patient is conscious, alert, cooperative. For small children, patient is active and playful. Next, come to the point, that is phases. Very important. In chronic hemolytic anemia, we'll get a particular type of phases, that is chronic hemolytic anemia phases. And as the most common cause of chronic hemolytic anemia is thalassemia or hemoglobinopathy, so it is also, the phases is also called thalassemic phases. How is the faces look like? There is frontal bossing, that is frontal part of the body, frontal part is elevated. So frontal bossing. Hypertelorism, that is eyes are separated from each other. There will be depressed nasal bridge. There will be maxillary region hypoplasia and dental malocclusion. These features are combinedly is called chronic hemolytic anemia phases or thalassemia phases. Why these phases occur? These phases occur due to extramedullary hematopoiesis. In any chronic hemolytic anemia, there is increased demand of erythropoiesis in body. RBC cells are breaking down more frequently than usual. So there is need of production of RBC in more and more amount than normal. So there is need of increased erythropoiesis in some places where normally erythropoiesis usually does not occur in normal time or normal situation. Like in liver spleen, this is extramedullary hematopoiesis, and is the hematopoiesis in our skull bone. Normally hematopoiesis occurs in adult life or in after birth. Hematopoiesis occurs usually the bone marrow of the long bone. When there is increased demand of hematopoiesis or erythropoiesis, then the flat bones of the skull, marrow of the flat bones of the skulls also take part in hematopoiesis, leading to increased marrow hyperplasia of the skull bone. Due to marrow hyperplasia, there will be increased distance between the outer and inner table of the skull bone and causing this facial deformities. So this is very important for if thalassemia patient, this faces is very important. Next, come to the nutrition. Build and nutrition in pediatric age group, usually we denote that anthropometry. That is weight, height, mid-arm circumference, chest circumference, head circumference, we denote. Most of the cases of chronic hemolytic anemia are usually having less weight, lesser height. That is, patients are usually suffering from malnutrition. Okay, malnutrition may be due to the disease per se, or malnutrition may predispose patient to develop hematological symptoms. Like in severe malnutrition, there will be consequent iron deficiency and patient will develop iron deficiency anemia. So nutrition is anthropometrical examination is very important, whether the patient has any malnutrition or not. Most of the patients of chronic hemolytic anemia, ALL, pancytopenia, needed recurrent blood transfusion, usually having malnutrition, height and weight less than normal for that age and sex. Next, come to the next point of general survey, that is decubitus. Decubitus means the position of the patient, the posture of the patient usually feels most comfortable. Usually in hematological cases, decubitus is not affected, no particular decubitus of choice, until and unless there is patient is very sick. Like if patient presented with respiratory distress from severe pallor causing heart failure, patient may like or prefer propped up position or sitting position depending upon the presence of degree of respiratory distress or presence of breathing difficulty. If the patient is unconscious, like as I told, in intracranial hemorrhage due to severe platelet deficiency, there will be the patient will in lying down position, or supine or prone position. So decubitus is hampered when the patient is very much sick due to any disorder of hematopoietic system. Next, come to very important point, that is pallor. Pallor. We know pallor. Usually there are different causes of pallor or anemia. That is due to nutritional deficiency. That may be due to nutritional deficiency, like iron deficiency, folate, or vitamin B12 deficiency. Anemia may be due to increased breakdown of RBC, like as in chronic hemolytic anemia. Apart from thalassemia, there are other causes of chronic hemolytic anemia also, that is like commonest enzyme deficiency, that is RBC enzyme, that is G6PD deficiency. There may be chronic hemolytic anemia due to defect in RBC membrane, like spherocytosis, elliptocytosis. Due to that, maybe due to hemoglobinopathies, other hemoglobinopathies like sickle cell anemia. So these are the causes of hemolytic anemia, causes excessive destruction of RBC and consequently anemia. Anemia may be due to decreased production from bone marrow. That may be due to pure red cell aplasia, that is presenting only the disorder, presenting only the affecting the red cell series in the bone marrow, or maybe anemia due to part of the all three level blood cell level affection, like in leukemia or pancytopenia. Other causes of anemia, like anemia of chronic inflammation in body due to any chronic disease, like any infection, chronic tuberculosis, patient will present with consequent anemia. This anemia occurs due to anemia of chronic inflammation. So anemia will clinically present us with pallor. Okay, pallor. How will see pallor? Pallor in the body, from where we detect pallor, that is first the lower palpebral conjunctiva. But in pediatric age group, lower palpebral conjunctiva is not only lower palpebral conjunctiva is not a reliable signs of pallor or anemia, because the most of the time we'll examine the baby will crying, and crying causes congestion of the conjunctival vessel, and pallor will be, or anemia will be masked. You cannot detect anemia by examining only the palpebral conjunctiva. So other sites should be examined carefully. So apart from lower palpebral conjunctiva, what are the sites, other sites for examination of pallor? That is examination of oral mucosa, examination of lips, examination of dorsum of the tongue. Then the examination of palm and sole, and that is to be compared with the color of the examiner's own hand, and the crease of the patient also to be checked. If the crease is not visible properly, patient is having severe pallor, and at least if the creases are seen properly, patient is having not severe pallor, that is probably patient having moderate pallor. So these are the sites should be checked for pallor. Next, come to jaundice. Jaundice will know there are three types of jaundice, that is hemolytic type of jaundice, obstructive type of jaundice, and hepatocellular type of jaundice. Commonest type of jaundice we will get in hematopoietic system examination, that is hemolytic type of jaundice, that is unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, that may present in any type of associated with any type of chronic hemolytic anemia. Also, if the patient having a chronic liver disease and that may cause depression of hematopoietic system and consequent bleeding, you may get also jaundice due to hepatocellular disease. Okay, one dictum: if patient present with both pallor and jaundice, if the degree of pallor is more than degree of pallor is more than degree of jaundice, probably the cause of jaundice is hemolytic type of jaundice. And if the degree of jaundice is more than degree of pallor, probably is patient having the hepatocellular type of jaundice. That is, in hemolytic type of jaundice, breakdown of RBC occurs first, then jaundice develops. So pallor will be more than jaundice. And in case of hepatocellular type of jaundice, primary is there is jaundice. That is primary, there is chronic liver disease. Primary is liver dysfunction that subsequently cause coagulation defects, subsequently bleeding and pallor. So degree of jaundice will be more than degree of pallor in case of hepatocellular jaundice. This is a dictum for examination. And obstructive jaundice usually does not occur in causes of hematopoietic system, usually occurs in other like biliary atresia, choledochosis, other types of jaundice. Not concerned in our today's class. Next, edema. Edema, you may get edema due to disorders of hematopoietic system if patient present with heart failure due to severe anemia. If patient presents with heart failure due to severe anemia, you may get edema. Next is cyanosis and clubbing. Cyanosis and clubbing usually does not occur in cases of hematopoietic system until and unless patient is very sick due to severe respiratory distress, severe hypoxia due to heart failure from severe anemia. Patient may present with some degree of cyanosis. Or clubbing usually does not occur in case of hematopoietic system cases. Next, come to the examination of vital signs. What are the vital signs to be examined? That is pulse, blood pressure, respiration, and temperature. Vital signs of the body are usually changing with clinical status. But in pallor, there will be if we look for pulse, in pallor there will be tachycardia. That is, rate will be increased. There may be high volume pulse, and character of the pulse may be high volume, collapsing pulse, or that is so-called water hammer pulse. So in pallor, you may get tachycardia, high volume, water hammer pulse, depending upon the degree of pallor or degree of anemia. If the anemia or pallor is more severe, there will be more chance to get a tachycardia or high volume water hammer pulse. Other points, that is respiration. Respiration usually does not affect in mild or moderate cases. If patient is very sick, patient present with respiratory distress due to heart failure, the respiration will be altered. There may be tachypnea, that is high respiratory rate or irregular respiratory pattern. Number 3 is BP. Blood pressure is usually does not affected in hematopoietic system cases until and unless patient is very sick. Temperature, very frequently you may get patient in febrile condition in case where the WBC count are low causing repeated infection, causing high fever. So these are the changes of vital signs. The next point of general survey is examination of neck vein and neck gland. Neck vein examination is important for any elevated or raised jugular venous pressure. That indicates high jugular venous pressure, indicates that is the high right atrial pressure, that is indirectly evidence of heart failure. So enlarged pulsatile jugular vein you will get in case patient presented with heart failure due to severe pallor. Next, examination of neck gland. Examination of neck gland is very important. Examination of neck gland includes the cervical neck gland. There are two groups. One is horizontal group, one is vertical group. All groups will be examined properly. Vertical group include submandibular, submental, submandibular, facial, preauricular, postauricular, occipital, and the horizontal group includes from up, vertical group includes that is superficial cervical, deep cervical, jugulo-omohyoid, jugulo-digastric. Those all lymph nodes should be examined properly for any enlargement. What are the points to be noted during lymph node examination? That is the number, size, consistency, any tenderness, whether the lymph nodes are fixed with the underlying structure or not, or movable, if the overlying skin is free, if there is overlying sinus, fistula, etc. So all these points should be examined properly to get possible etiology of lymph node enlargement. Common causes of lymph node enlargement in hematopoietic system are due to ALL, maybe due to lymphoma, or maybe due to local any infection or any TB. Generalized lymphadenopathy is called when there is two or more contagious lymph node site enlargement, that is called, then it is called generalized lymphadenopathy. That is either cervical with axillary or axillary with inguinal. These are called this is called generalized lymphadenopathy. So during neck examination, cervical lymph node to be examined properly, and during systemic examination of hematopoietic system, other lymph node site, that is axillary, inguinal system, to be examined in details. Then after lymph node examination, neck gland examination, skin to be examined properly from head to toe for any bleeding points. If there are any bleeding points, purpura, petechiae, ecchymosis, that should be examination properly. So this is about the general survey examination related to hematopoietic system. Then come to the systemic examination. I just mentioning the points of the systemic system examination. The detailed system will be examined in later class. The points to be examined in the systemic examination, that is detailed examination of the lymph node system, cervical already described. Then examination of axillary lymph nodes, examination of inguinal lymph nodes, examination of epitrochlear lymph nodes. Epitrochlear lymph nodes are present in above the epicondyles of humerus. So epitrochlear lymph node examination. So detailed examination of the other lymph nodes to be examined in systemic system. Systemic examination of hematopoietic system. Other are detailed examination of liver and spleen, and examination of for any bone tenderness. Lymph node examination of liver, spleen, and for any and bone tenderness include the examination of hematopoietic system. Now I am just emphasizing you the approach to case of pallor. How to approach case of pallor. Patient presented with pallor and how to approach to reach your diagnosis. So, if patient present with only pallor, only anemia, there are no lymphadenopathy, no bleeding manifestation, then there is a possibility of few diagnostic points, that is probably cause of anemia or pallor is due to either nutritional deficiency, that is iron deficiency anemia, folate or vitamin B12 deficiency, that is megaloblastic anemia, maybe due to anemia of chronic inflammation. If there is no other symptoms like hepatosplenomegaly, any lymphadenopathy or bleeding, etc. If patient makes with bleeding without any hepatosplenomegaly or lymphadenopathy, just only bleeding is present, then look for whether the bleeding occurs first, then pallor develops, or bleeding or pallor occurs simultaneously, or the pallor precedes bleeding. So if the pallor precedes bleeding or pallor or bleeding occurring simultaneously, there is every possibility of aplastic anemia. Okay. Without any hepatosplenomegaly, without any lymphadenopathy, only pallor and bleeding, and pallor or bleeding is occurring simultaneously, or the pallor is occurring first, then bleeding manifestation is occurring. So this may be the possibility of aplastic anemia. Next, if the bleeding occurs first, then patient develops pallor, then there is chance of any septic ulcer or any esophageal varices that's causing massive bleeding, and consequently pallor is developed. Or any other causes of bleeding due to like hemophilia or ITP causing severe bleeding. If patient present with pallor, bleeding along with hepatosplenomegaly or lymphadenopathy, there is every possibility of some differential diagnosis like ALL, lymphoma, disseminated tuberculosis, or HIV. If organomegaly, that is hepatosplenomegaly, and lymphadenopathy is present along with pallor plus minus bleeding manifestation. Bleeding manifestation may or may not be present. If the patient does not have any bleeding manifestation, only hepatosplenomegaly is present, lymphadenopathy is not present, only pallor and hepatosplenomegaly is present. Pallor plus hepatosplenomegaly. So first possible diagnosis is chronic hemolytic anemia. So pallor plus hepatosplenomegaly without lymphadenopathy, without any bleeding manifestation, is first possibility of chronic hemolytic anemia. Other possibility that may occur, that chronic malaria, chronic kala-azar. Okay. Other is disseminated TB or ALL or ওকে, এনি কোয়ারিজ? যতটুকু পড়ালাম তার মধ্যে এনি কোয়ারিজ?
Ma'am, can you please repeat that part? Hepatodenopathy with bleeding plus minus. What will be the
Okay.
possible?
Pallor with hepatosplenomegaly, lymphadenopathy. The most common causes or chances are ALL and lymphoma. Okay, these two possibilities. Other you may get, that is disseminated tuberculosis or HIV. The rare possibility, less possibility, if the bleeding is not present, only hepatosplenomegaly, lymphadenopathy, then these 4 points are very important: ALL, lymphoma, disseminated TB, and HIV. If the bleeding is present, then first possibility is ALL or lymphoma. TB, disseminated TB or HIV may occur, but less possibility. Any other?
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other queries, questions? Thalassemia cases কিন্তু পড়বে। Thalassemia is very important case, most frequently দেওয়া হয়। So hematopoietic system examination is very important. Any other questions, queries? আচ্ছা, কোনো কোয়ারিজ না থাকলে আমি অফ করছি। আর সায়ন যদি থাকে আমাকে এগুলো অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স গুলো একটু পাঠিয়ে দিন। সায়ন আছে? সায়নকে বলিস আমাকে অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স গুলো পাঠিয়ে দিতে একটু। Okay, thank you for today's class.